Please note that the following video might contain graphic material of injuries and/or murders or descriptions thereof and may be upsetting to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Witkruis Farm Attack and Murder Statistics Group. Farm Attacks and Murders in South Africa, November 2023, presented by Urban Buck. Good evening, I'm Klaas and welcome to Urban Buck. The total number of statistics for Witkruis group this month stands at 24 for some reason, and it was compared to other statistics that is published online, and for some reason we have 8 attacks more than another company or another organization, the Rome Research Institute. The murders we had was the same, and then we also counted a couple of successes, which I will discuss through the course of this video, and then also, though it's not counted as successes, there is stock that was returned to its original owner or its rightful owner, which is not counted as successes because there were no arrests in those cases. The stats I'm presenting might not make sense in a lot of ways, especially when I put up the graphs in a moment. Crime-wise, the rate of which crimes were committed or farm attacks were executed in November, we're talking about one attack every 31.2 hours, which is a bit uncomfortable. A total of 46 people were affected in the statistics that we gathered, and that is people that's either being murdered, people that's severely injured, or directly affected by the loss of a next of kin, a wife or a husband, or property, and in such cases directly affecting the income or production of farms. Now, I made my own list of the different crimes that was committed, and the first one I've got is murder. There were 2 murders, and then one of my own categories that I added here is murder, no robbery, because in the past we did have cases where the victims were just murdered and nobody was left alive. It was like sort of a double murder, and nothing was taken in those cases. So that's why I added the murder, no robbery. Then attempted murder, we had 4 cases. Then kidnapping, that was the case of a 5-year-old girl in Onderstepoort, north of Pretoria. Then there was assault with a blunt object. There were 9 of those, and then 2 stabbings. Robbery of money, a lot of money was taken. Robbery goods, that was 11 cases. Robbery where money was taken was 4 cases. Like I said, robbery of goods, it was 11 cases. Trespassing, only 1 case. Vehicle theft, 3 cases. Stock theft, 4 cases. And then also 5 cases of intimidation. The first graph I have is the farm attacks and murders by province, and you'll see Gauteng province, that was 41, and a lot of that 41% comes out of only one area, which is Cullinan West, and I will discuss that as a separate area when we go through the attacks. Then Limpopo 23, Northwest, there were 9, that's including the stock poisoning. The Northern Cape 0, in Mpumalanga only 4%, Free State 0%, KwaZulu-Natal 9%, Eastern Cape 5%, and the Western Cape 9%. The reason why I only have 2 graphs for tonight or for today on this presentation is because you need to clearly define which crimes are which, and I'm still battling with that, and there's a lot of people that's trying to convince me, because I need to display a better picture as to what is actually happening on a crime scene. Now, the stuff that was taken, goods that was robbed, we see the cash 10%, and cash 10%, but the amount of cash, hard cash, that was taken is almost 150,000 South African rand. Then firearms, 11%. In a lot of cases, firearms were taken, but strangely, it's only 11% of the cases that where firearms were actually taken. Vehicles, 8%. Stock, 11% of the cases. Household items, only 5%. Personal belongings, 5%. Electronics, that's you can say almost in each and every attack, cell phones and laptops are taken. Anita Clapton was 68 when she died. Well, when she was murdered. This happened on the 10th of November 2023 on their farm Kitsani in the Ravello area in the Northwest Province. Anita and her husband Frick were attacked in the early hours of that morning, probably between midnight and 4 a.m. Both were found tied up and severely assaulted. Anita succumbed in the house, and there were unconfirmed reports that she was shot as well. Frick was later rushed to hospital. He was in a very serious condition. The attackers fled in the couple's Ford Ranger truck. That was spotted on a camera around 3:55 on that morning, and that vehicle was later found abandoned a few miles from the farm. The other murder happened slightly earlier in November. That was on the 3rd of November 2023. That's the murder of Mateki Mosito. He was 56 years old at the time of his death. 6 suspicious men entered the farm with the pretext of buying cattle. They forced their way inside the house, and in the ensuing struggle, Mosito was fatally shot. His wife, Mankebe Mohale, was seriously wounded in the lower abdomen, and another man that was present was shot in the foot. That covers the murders in rural context. But I think the question on a lot of people's lips in South Africa in the past 2 weeks is that how can anybody enter your house? And was in the one case when this 39-year-old lady, a single parent to a 15-year-old daughter, was broken into the house. The daughter ran for a weapon, and she hid behind a printer where she was discovered. But without doing anything, the perpetrators walked down the passage, and when the mother came out, she screamed at the child that her daughter ran, and she was on the spot. She was shot in the chest. Only a cell phone was taken. And for those abroad that's following this channel and that is interested in news, this type of news from South Africa, this is what's happening in South Africa. A couple of years ago, I knew a guy that was knifed in Johannesburg city centre, and only his cell phone was taken. Why? Is a life worth so little? In another case, and I'm going to use the word dismembered because I cannot use on a word that describes it better than dismembered, because if you wield an axe on a woman and a child, you cannot just give your victim a few cuts and bruises. Something has got to be broken or dismembered or opened to its core in a case like that. Those were 2 murders in the past 2 weeks that shocked South Africa. It was all over social media. South Africans know what I'm talking about. Brutal. It's barely safe to walk to the nearest shop, which might be not even 2 kilometers away, because you don't know what you are going to encounter along the way. Much less whether you're going to reach the house safe with your wallet and your goods that you bought at that shop totally intact. Cameeldrift West is an area, mostly small holdings, to the west of Pretoria, the capital of South Africa, and roughly between Pretoria and the Hartbeespoort Dam. Mostly, like I say, mostly small holdings, and over the years you could see the decay in the area. A lot of people are still holding out. There's some farming activities that is going on, but one of the biggest things in the Kameeldrift area is the crime in that area. David Norkia was shot in the chest by one of two assailants in October. That is one of the attacks in October that I can remember. I think if I remember correctly, there were two. For November, there were 4 attacks, and that's not all. If you are on these community policing forum WhatsApp groups, or CPF groups as we call them, then you get news like this on a daily basis as to what is going on, the activities in those areas. Now, if it was just attacks, it's fine. Then you could narrow it down to certain activities. But the integrity of the properties are tested and violated on a daily basis. Activities such as trespassing. They cut fences to create ingress routes into properties. And it's not the guy that's cutting the fence that is actually going in and committing the crime. He's cutting the fence, another guy is coming in and he is doing the breaking and entering and the stealing. They create through routes between one area and another, but going through a property, and they're not at all bothered about whose property it is. Petty theft of anything are reported on a daily basis. Like in this week, a guy was just driving down the road on his motorcycle, and he was taken off his motorcycle, and the motorcycle stolen. The motorcycle was actually found back an hour, 2 hours later, and the guy was lightly injured. And then, if that's not enough, like I say, the one guy cuts the fence, another guy comes, and he comes from a different area. He's not there when the fence is cut. He follows a sequence of rubbish that is placed along the road that is guiding him in. This is like a route map that these guys build to show a perpetrator, this is the route that you need to take. This is the amount of steps that you need to take towards your next marker, and that's going to indicate to you which direction next, how many spaces you need to take before you can get through the hole in the fence that is pre-prepared for you so that you can go in. And even once you're inside the property, there's indicators, there's pointers, there's markers that's indicating you what is the next step, which direction you need to take. And it takes you right to the point where you need to actually enter the house and do what you are supposed to do there. In the last month, a gang was spotted on camera, and they've since been connected to various other crimes just by the boot prints. And these guys are clearly identified. One guy, presumably the group leader, and I say group leader because his whole stance was more experienced. It was like he was a trained soldier, and he had these 4 rookies with him. And they tested the door and found this door to be locked, and they retreated and walked off as if it was normal business for them. The first case I'm going to discuss with you is on the 11th of November, an unknown family in Kohlrabi Road. The family, they were outside just enjoying a barbecue, and they were confronted by 3 attackers. The son, 22, he was assaulted and with a firearm in the face while the rest of the family was tied up. One of the family members actually managed to free herself, and she went to seek some assistance. Cell phones and household items were taken, and then they were gone again. These things happen in the blink of an eye, and if you're not prepared for these things, you are going to come short. The 18th November, Stander family. Now this is an interesting case because a lot of things went wrong for the or few things went wrong for the perpetrators. The family were out at the convenience store, and they were warned that by people that, or by neighbors, that trespassers were spotted in their area, and they rushed home. They left the two kids in the car, and they rushed inside, and they were overwhelmed and tied up by three armed suspects, and they demanded the keys to the safe. In this whole process, a shot was fired at Mrs. Stander, but by a blessing from above, the weapon jammed. And the children, they had the presence of mind to call for help, but the perps fled with a firearm, ammunition, and some electronic items. The next day, 19th of November, just around the corner from where the Stander family was attacked the previous night, Renier 67 and Estelle van der Westhuizen 63. They were assaulted with a blunt object, after which the key to both the safe and the vehicles were demanded. Renier was hit several times with a machete, and fortunately for him, he wasn't cut in the process, but he managed to protect himself with his arms. TVs and cameras were taken. Estelle was tied up to a towel rack in the bathroom, but hit in the face. Her injuries were not as severe as Renier's, and they were both tied up and then dragged to an outbuilding where Estelle's brother were already isolated. They were warned by the perpetrators not to request for help or action before 5 o'clock the next morning. And like I say, appliances and cameras were robbed in the process. On 26 November, a few days later, in the Hornsoort part of Camildrift West, an unknown male and female were attacked in the house. Three armed attackers gained access to the fence which were cut, and while at the same time they created an escape route by pushing down a palisade fence at the back of the property. They broke down a security gate with a crowbar, and then the occupants of the house were tied up and assaulted. The woman was hit with a shovel before they demanded an EFT from the couple's cell phone. They fled with the laptop and the cell phones. The couple's child was asleep in another room and miraculously didn't wake up. Now, if I'm an attacker and I get to you, and after tying you up, I demand you to do an EFT from your cell phone, how would I know? Except that in this day and age, a lot of people have got the banking app on their phones. How would I know that you do actually have the banking app on your phone and you do actually have money in the bank which you can transfer? And I'm going to mention it later on again. And in a lot of these cases, domestic help are guilty. In so many of these cases, it is just not true. This is one of those cases where domestic servants or farm workers, employees, were actually identified as being perpetrators or as being involved in the case. In the Pretoria North area, or North Pretoria, in the Onderstepoort area. Now, Onderstepoort is also an agricultural research facility in South Africa, a well-known place where they create vaccines for cattle. It's also the source where a lot of snake anti-venom is kept and then flown out on request for some of the more rarer poisonous snakes in South Africa. The woman was called out of her house to assist her husband at the pig pens, and the lady that worked for her for many years called her and said, your husband needs help at the pig pens. But on the way to the pig pens, there's a dam, and at the dam, this woman was overwhelmed by 7 attackers. She was tied up and taken to the pig pen and to join her husband, which was already there tied up. The couple's son-in-law was also tied up. Details and injuries are vague, but here comes the crunch. A total amount of 75,000 South African rand was EFT'd from the couple's account, after which the attackers took a Ford Ranger double cab and a Ford Bantam light delivery vehicle with which they removed the robbed goods. The attackers spoke Shona. Now, in South Africa, there's a huge presence of Zimbabweans. Over the years, they started infiltrating. Some of them were legally. Some of them nowadays they just walk over the border with nobody stopping them. That's how border control works in South Africa. You can just enter if you enter in by legal means. It's a whole story because you have to go through customs. But if you just want to enter in South Africa at the Beit Bridge between border post across the Limpopo from Zimbabwe to South Africa, you just drive through the river, over the fence, and you're in South Africa. Now, the attackers spoke Shona, which is one of the native Zimbabwean languages, and the whole time, and afterward, a Zim man and a woman, a Zimbabwean man and a woman that's been employed with these people for many, many years were gone. Their rooms were cleaned out. It was as if they've never been there. Also, a 5-year-old girl, that was the kidnapping that I spoke to earlier on when I discussed the stats. 5-year-old girl from a neighboring property was under the care of an employee of these people. What the nationality of this employee was or is, I'm not sure. I don't have that information. She was abducted. The employee was taken with the little girl, and the little girl was returned to her parents later that afternoon. Now, you can imagine if you're a parent and your 5-year-old girl is taken, she's kidnapped. Imagine those hours until you're reunited with your child. There's a lot of mothers out there. I'm a father, and I tell you, if I don't know where my kid is, my kid has been adopted, I'll go ballistic. It's one of those things. Now, the information is not out of November. It's now what happened in the past week. That's between last Friday and today. Today being Thursday, the 7th of December. In this whole week, or in this past week, there were 1 murder and 3 other separate attacks in that same Onderstepoort area, just in this week. Now, that's why I'm treating that as a separate area to indicate the severity of crime in certain areas. Now, I can take you to other areas as well, towards the north, towards Johannesburg, but peri-urban wise, and not urban, not rural, but sort of on the fringe of the city, that area which is still classified as rural because of agricultural activities. Those are 2 of the big hotspots in the Gauteng province. Other attacks that stood out in this month was, first of all, was on the 14th of November in Mukuzi. A woman was overcome early in the morning. The dogs were making a ruckus. They wanted to go outside. You know how dogs are. 5 o'clock in the morning, they've got their own alarm system. They want out. But what was not confirmed in this area was whether the dogs were going ballistic because there were perps outside. This woman opened the security gate. She opened the doors, and next moment, 4 perps were standing in front of her. They forced her back into the house, and then her and her friend, they've been friends for many, many years, they were tied up and kept in the lounge. And immediately after entering the property, all cameras, hard drives, everything were deactivated, removed immediately. These guys even took the whole safe with a firearm in it. That's how these guys operate. They try to leave no tracks whatsoever. Then in the Western Cape on the 20th of November, a farmer in the Western Cape was robbed of 68,500 South African rand. Now, that's a lot of money, and it was speculated that he went to the bank to draw wages. Now, you don't just go to the bank and draw wages and nobody sees or nobody notices. And to walk in and take 68,500 rand in cash from somebody you must have an idea that that has been done previously, and that time of the month this guy is going to go to the bank and he's going to draw the wages, and that's ideal. Maybe he's going to do it once, twice, the third time they are going to nab him, and they did nab him, unfortunately. Hannes and Susan Pretorius were severely assaulted on their farm in the Limpopo area, province. That is the Klipvlei area close to Rebelkraal. That's to the west of the town of Tabazimbi, which is a mining town. They mine iron ore over there. The perps attacked Susan so severely. They assaulted her so severely. She was hospitalized. She was evacuated by helicopter, and the perps fled with rifles. And this was later recovered when they crossed the border with Botswana. The Botswana police were waiting for them because the Botswana police were tipped off that there was going to be an attack in this certain area, and these guys presumably wanted to use these rifles and firearms in this attack, and the Botswana police were waiting for them and eliminated all three of them. Kudos to the Botswana police. The recovery, the firearms were then since connected to the robbery at Klipvlei, and the firearms are in the process of being returned to their legal and rightful owners. Now, looking at farm attacks, there's two elements that I want to highlight. In a lot of cases, the employees, trusted employees for many, many years are involved. A lot of these cases. There's people that's going to argue the point with me. You can come, I can show you the evidence. It is, unfortunately, it is the case. Then foreign nationals are more often than not part of the perpetrator gang. Like this one guy was taking a nap on a Sunday afternoon. He had a toque. That was one of his first mistakes. His second mistake was that he was absolutely not security conscious. The third element in this attack was that just a week prior, he had a disagreement with a Malawian national that worked for him. He fired the guy, discontinued his employment, and this guy was begrudged. He came back on a Sunday afternoon because he knew this guy was going to relax on the couch. He was probably going to take a nap, and he's probably going to have the keys to the safe. Needless to say, this guy was bludgeoned. But when they started running around to see if they can open the safe, he ran to another property on this farm. It's like sort of a lodge, and he ran to one of the lodges from his homestead, and he alerted the people there. They helped him. They carried him off to the doctor, and some of the people at the lodge went back to their house, and they found that these guys could not access the safes, and they fled empty-handed. I'm going to continue with the stock-related incidents, and there is going to be a warning on the screen, but I'm warning you beforehand that there are some sensitive material, and if you want to reconsider watching that part or skip forward, you're more than welcome to it. Stock-related incidents, if I'm not mistaken, there were 4 of them, and I must also warn you that this section may contain graphic material of injuries and or cruelty to animals and may be upsetting to some viewers. So please use discretion. Discretion is advised in this case. The first case that I'm going to discuss is actually had so much publicity already, and at the time there was also a production by Urban Bug, and you can go and have a look at the channel at Urban Bug ZA. With regards to that, it's about the poison that was used, Temic or two-step, and there's a whole video about that where I discussed the matter with the farmer, and he gave us some valuable, Chris Harmse, he gave us some valuable information about the effects of Temic and long-term and short-term, what it does to the environment. Go and have a look. It's called the Braai cattle poisoning and you can also use the hashtag for TEMIK, TEMIK, or I think there's also a hashtag for two-step, like 2 steps, because once an animal gets this poison into its system, it's a matter of taking 2 steps and then it's dead. Now, there's a lot of opinions, and some might agree with me, some of them might disagree with me, but this was also a case of environmental terrorism, because not only were cattle affected, it affected bird life, and there was even an owl that was spotted amongst these things. Now, if any scavenger would touch one of the affected animals or birds, that scavenger would die as well. Another bird might come and pick up a tick that was infected. That bird is going to die. That's how effective this poisoning is, how effective TEMIK is. And so the effects thereof is not just the dead animal by the trough, by the water trough. It's also far further beyond that, because you might see 2 or 3 dead birds in the water trough, and some around it, but you don't know about the bird that actually managed to fly 2-3 meters before it dropped dead, and which has been taken by a jackal or any other scavenging animal. But yeah, all is well, that ends well for this case. And on Wednesday, yesterday, the 6th of December, 2023, the last of the heifers were loaded. There was a request for donations for young cows, to help this guy back on his feet. And the last of these cows were loaded yesterday all over South Africa and were taken to their new pastures in the Tosca area at the farm of Ockert Goosen and his wife. It was heartwarming to see how the farming community actually reached out and how they opened their hearts and their hands and donated as was requested. The alleged perpetrator has not been prosecuted yet. We know who he is, yeah, that the process might take a bit of time. This is South Africa, but action was ordered. Action by the police was ordered by the court, and we will see how far this gets. In this part, there is going to be an insert about cattle that is slaughtered in the Vryheid area. That happened on the 6th of November 2023. It was just an indiscriminate slaughtering. Yeah, if we say it's indiscriminate slaughtering, then it's actually putting it very lightly. It's a pure, brutal, barbaric act of violence against animals. Look at this. I did not mention that was in the KwaZulu-Natal province. For those of you abroad that knows where Durban are, or where Pietermaritzburg is, that's also the 2 points for the renowned Comrades Marathon. Now, the area of Vryheid is well to the north of that, closer to the Swaziland border, and it's actually brilliant cattle area, and also there are some game farms there as well. But just the next day, on the 7th November, in the Vogtville area in Gauteng province, that's out to the west, there's a whole series of mines in that area, and we spoke earlier about the farmer that was shot at Western area. Now, this is more or less in the same area, maybe a bit south of Western area. This cattle farmer was coaxed out of his house, and he went towards the cattle pens where intruders suddenly opened fire on him. He shoots back, but in the whole process, the intruders managed to drive off some of these cattle. That was later found and returned. And then the next day, the 8th of November, it's as if 6, 7, 8, we do cattle. In the Carltonville area, which is fairly close to that, a herdsman and his wife is held at gunpoint by 6 armed intruders. The man is severely assaulted. He was later hospitalized. The wife managed to hide herself, and while the attackers careered some 150 head of cattle from the property, she called the owner of the farm. He alerted the authorities. The cattle was driven towards the Glen Harvey mine area, but all of them are found later and carried back to the farm. Unfortunately, people got hurt in this process, and there is a case of attempted murder that was opened in one of these cases, the Fochville case. There was an attempted murder. If these groups are the same people, we are not sure, but it might just well be the same gangs that's taking people's cattle from certain areas. That's all from me. This is November 2023. Please, if you can share this video far and wide, especially I'm going to tag some people overseas in the distribution of this video. Please share this video with people that you know, other farmers, especially in the States, cattle farmers over there, so that they will understand our plight or our cattle farmers or farmers' plight. There is a huge movement against farm murders in South Africa and certain parts of the United States. We thank you guys for that. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you for keeping the South African farmers in your prayers and in your minds and in your hearts. We really appreciate it. There's a whole lot of people that's involved in the movement, like I say, especially in the States. We've got some people that is friendly to our case in the UK. A lot of people that is friendly to our case, that supports the case of against farm murders and attacks in South Africa, especially in the Netherlands, and then also some areas, other countries in the world as well. Thank you for your support. We really appreciate that. This is all from me. Until next time, or the next video on farm attacks. Sadly, there will be more, but eventually, hopefully, we get to curb the attacks on farmers and the murders that sometimes accompany those attacks. Enjoy your day.
And as such, it will be. A time will come when marauding packs of dogs will roam the plains, maiming, killing and devouring anything in their path. It will be a time when the farmer will be gone and food will no longer be.